This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Creating Your Encore Life. This is where you can learn to do the work you love, when you want, and where you want. You can be creating value in the world beyond just winning the next pickleball game, or maybe just binge watching more Netflix shows. Instead, you can live your dream. Now, if you're ready to get started today, please contact me at lynn@lynnfreest.com. And as always, thanks for listening. This is episode 210, and I'm going to be promoting an online course for the Modern Elder Academy, and a course coming up on the 28th of August. It's called Reframing Retirement. And so I'll give you an introduction as to why this is an important topic, and then I'll talk a little more about the course that they're going to be offering, and I would encourage you to consider. Also, I'll have a link in there for an interesting new study from AgeWave. They do a lot of work around what happens in the second half of life, but they call it the new age of aging. And it's a lot of information on demographics. One of the key things they start off with is, in your grandparents' time, 60 was old. But now as we're out there, people my age, now we'd have to say that 80 is old, or even later than that. Coming up in the future, they push back to 90. So this whole idea of what's old is changing. So this is going to be about reframing retirement, and it's creating a new vision for your next chapter. It's one of those things where, in my case, I decided I wanted to retire to do something different. I wasn't retiring to retire, but in 2015, I thought it was time to approach some new challenges. I wanted to take the knowledge and skills that I had and apply them in new arenas. So I chose to, quote, retire. And that retirement, of course, gave me a cushion, something to live off of while I pursued these other things. But it's important to know that I think my wife or somebody has said that I didn't retire, I just repurposed myself. And that's probably a good way to put it. But I think that's coming up for more and more people. Often people are saying they want to retire by the age of 60 or earlier. But then all of a sudden, if you ask the question, then if it's at the age of 50, you could have another 50 years. What do you think you want to do? So some of that is, and again, there's in today's uncertain world, for some people, it's not a choice, it's forced upon them. So there's all that piece of how we really need to think of, and I think in the AgeWave study, people are saying, it's a new chapter in life, not a retirement from life. The old frame, and it's truly from a long time ago, but the age of 65 was traditional retirement. And then you thought people lived about 10 years beyond that to 75. And the way we thought about life in those terms, at least, after World War II, was you learned, in other words, up to about the age of 20, 22, you were in education, then you earned, so you had a life or a career between 22 and we'll say 65, and then you retired. And that comprised the whole set of stages for your life. And again, that had a lot of negative connotations in retirement because people tended to view retirement as a period of decline and dependency. So some of that is certainly significantly changing. Again, we as a society have to look differently at it, not just as individuals, because there is going to be longer life expectancy, but that also comes with some financial challenge and general insecurity. If I'd had multiple different jobs up through the age of 65, maybe I haven't made that a great big nest egg. And then as you go talk to your financial planners and say, I might live to be 90, they'll say, okay, you need a really big nest egg then, because you're starting to get the spot where you'll have 40 years of work where you built your nest egg, but now you got 40 years of retirement that it has to last through. So that whole financial piece is something, it's going to be different. Then the other thing, just in terms of longevity, you have to stay engaged and you have to have a purpose. And we'll talk more about that. And that's a lot of what goes on in the course is people focus on the financial piece, but then they forget about the psychological pieces or the purpose pieces, those things that keep us alive and energized and healthy. Because again, as I've mentioned in other podcasts, it can be really shocking when you leave your career, leave your identity. So there's some things you have to consider as you all of a sudden say, I'm going to start a new chapter. And then we get to the idea of the unretirement. It's one of those things that often, and I will say maybe there's an interesting piece here. When I've talked to people who are contemplating retirement, they say, I'm tired, I'm burned out, I don't want to start a new career, anything like that. So maybe we need to be thinking of terms of, hey, you're going to retire and you're going to be on 2, 3, 4 year sabbatical. You're going to do something else. And it's not going to be technically working or earning a thing. But what you'll find is then you really need to be intentional about creating new social connections and networks. And you need to find something that's going to create mental stimulation and create some ongoing learning for you. And again, at that point, while you take this sabbatical, you may be thinking about, hey, this financially, this is going to take a little more money than maybe I have. So we need to consider the fact. Now, I will say in talking to some financial people, it could be you don't have to go back to earn maybe that 6-figure income that you did before, maybe a 5-figure income or $20,000, $30,000 a year. If you can do that over 10 years, that might make a great bridge for that whole retirement piece that you have, at least in terms of financial things. So I think this thought of working when you want, where you want, and doing the work you love also is a good approach to here's how you create a bridge for your retirement financially. So in the course, and I would recommend this in any case, is you probably need to do some self-reflection. Need to think about what is going to get you up in the morning. It could be that right now, what gets me up in the morning is going to visit the grandkids, or we're going on a cruise or something like that. But is that going to get you up in the morning for 30 or 40 years? And understand, whatever you decide is your purpose or what you want to do today, that can change. Today's world, you can have multiple careers, even in retirement. So some of this is, I just have to decide what my purpose is for the near term. And you might have multiple purposes. I've talked in other shows about the portfolio career or the portfolio life. There will just be different points of emphasis maybe as you go through this next chapter in your life. And then the whole idea of lifelong learning and skill development. Some of that can be for hobbies. Some of that can be for other types of training. I've been in the bit right now and trying to learn how to use ChatGPT and some other AI tools to help me do research, help me start creating outlines of things that I want to talk about or want to learn about. Some of this is, I think, learning, continuous learning is always going to be important. But this isn't, you don't want this to be all consuming. Again, part of what I'm sure you're looking for in the second chapter of life is making time for friends, family, relaxation, learning, whatever it may be, even starting a new business. So it's one of those things where you now hopefully will have the flexibility to pursue other things. And we circle back to this idea of the portfolio life. You can have multiple things that you're up to, and they will change over time. So a little bit more about the Modern Elder Academy's Reframing Retirement course. And it's designed for people, whether they're in their 40s or their 70s. Maybe they've just gotten tired of a demanding job. Maybe they got downsized, or maybe they're simply empty nesters and they're looking to something there that to do differently. It's one of those things that people look forward to, quote, retirement. But there again, when it used to be a fairly short period of time, that was one thing. But now it's actually a long period of time. So we need to think about it differently. So in this course by the Modern Elder Academy, it's a 5-day sprint. It starts on August 28th. But I've been involved in 2 other of the online courses from Modern Elder Academy, and they were excellent. A great set of resources. You get to have breakout sessions where you really get to talk through the different things that you're doing. So again, I highly encourage it. In this particular course, in these 5 days, there are going to be 90 minutes of video lessons every day. They're also going to have 3 online live events. And whenever they do these, they have great opportunity for breakouts. So as they've had the materials and you've looked at it, you do get the chance to talk to other people. And I think that's great because the way you learn or the way you really make something your own is in conversation with others. So they'll also have some tools that they'll tell us about, whether about how to do reflections or assessments or other things. And then there's going to be obviously bonus materials, and you'll always have access to this class and its materials. This 5-day sprint style course is for curious people. They may be confused, stressed, or bored, or overwhelmed, but it also could be that you're excited to figure out what you're going to do next. So here's just a kind of a quick overview of what's in the course that starts out with transitions. Who are we now? What's our mindset about what's coming forward for us? And how do we maybe think about our identity differently than we have in the past? Then they'll go through some ideas on foundations or success scripts. What are the things that help us moving forward in this process as we figure it out and understand what it means to us? They'll talk then on day 3 about vitality or how to flourish. Again, we have to get back to the idea of we have a lot to say in terms of our health, our relationships, and our networks or community that we live in. Those are always key elements in how we use this next chapter in our life. Then in day 4, they talk about purpose. As I said earlier in the thing, what is it that gets you up in the morning? And it can change over time. Or I know in some cases I had people say, I've got 3 purposes, and that's perfectly all right. But the whole thing is to try to figure out what's the purpose. And it's something beyond just watching more Netflix series, but it's something for you to kind of think about. And finally on day 5, it's about starting to create some intention. And they call it designing my regeneration journey. What's the roadmap you're going to create for yourself? And it'll be different for each of us. That'll be on day 5. Now, as I've seen in these other courses, they have 8 core faculty. They have 5 people on a multi-generational panel, and they'll have 22 additional experts. And some of this is provided through video clips, but there is going to be just a wealth of information. So while it may not answer all your questions right away in these 5 days, you will have a wealth of information to go back and refer to as you go on. The cost of the course is very modest, at least for these kinds of things. It's $395. Again, not a showstopper, and it's well worth that 5 days of effort, attention on your part. So I highly recommend it, and links for the course as well as that other age wave study are going to be in the show notes. So once again, you can go to Modern Elder Academy and look for their course on reframing retirement or follow the links. Thanks again for listening. With an Encore Life, you could be creating value in the world beyond just winning the next pickleball game. And you can do the work you love when you want and where you want, and you can live your dream. So if you're ready to get started today, please contact me at lynn@lynnfrias.com or head over to my website at lynnfrias.com. You could listen to a few podcasts and get on the email list. So we'll see you next time.